here with another episode of First Looks. And we have finished Matthew 19, and we are into Matthew 19. We're going to be in verses 1 through 12. And what we have here is a hard teaching on divorce. And probably what I would recommend that we see from this is certainly a passage about divorce and marriage, but there is something even deeper than just this particular topic that's being disputed between Jesus and the Pharisees. Now, there's something that runs underneath that has application to how we approach law, culture, living in God's creational design and His redemptive purposes. And so I think if we pay attention, we'll see that happening here. And I have a suspicion that this will be an important part of what happens in my sermon is how we make this passage not only about divorce and marriage. We can't neglect divorce and marriage in this passage. It's right there on the surface level. But I think we miss something if we only make this a passage about marriage and divorce. And so let's go ahead and start walking through it, and we'll see what we get. Now, when Jesus had finished saying these sayings, this is from Matthew 18, which, reminder, is about sin and forgiveness. Let's not forget that as we roll into this passage. I think it is. I think Matthew, in his ordering of Jesus's teachings on his way from Caesarea Philippi in Matthew 16 all the way down to the region of Galilee, and now we'll see as he enters into Judea and he's not far away from Jerusalem. I think Matthew was very intentional at putting these things next to each other. And so Jesus, his disciples, they left Galilee. Galilee's up here. You have Jordan River. This is Galilee. And then you have Judea, and you have Jerusalem right there. A very crude sketch, so forgive if it is not to scale. But the point is, they're heading south from home base, and it actually says that they went beyond the Jordan, likely meaning that they crossed east. This may have been to avoid Samaria, which would have been a common path for the Jews. We know Jesus was not afraid to go through Samaria. He did quite a bit there. Look at John chapter 4. But because he was probably with a caravan of people heading to Jerusalem, to Judea, he probably just saw no problem with following the common route that would have been taken. So that's what's happening. Now, this is important to remember because he is going to Jerusalem. He is heading to the cross. Can't forget that, because in all these things we run the risk of the risk of the Pharisee, which is understanding our righteousness before God as based upon our ability to fulfill His law. But Jesus is going to the cross because we cannot fulfill the law. So as he's going, large crowds follow him. And he healed them there, and this is going to be the crowd that likely many in this crowd will be part of the triumphal entry. And as he's on his way there, the Pharisees came up, and he's already had a run-in with the Jerusalem, the delegation that was sent out to inquire of Jesus and what he thought and what he was doing. And it says here, the Pharisees came up to him, and they tested him. Now, this is important because this shows us that their concern isn't about marriage. Pharisees are not so concerned with marriage as they are with catching Jesus in bad light, maybe. I don't know. That's not maybe the way that I would want to say it, but they're trying to get the crowds miffed at him. And so they're pulling up a controversial debate on the nature of acceptable divorce, or acceptable reasons for divorce. So this comes down to a debate between two. It's a debate between two older rabbis that are long since dead at this point, and they basically had two different understandings of a passage in Deuteronomy 24. So verses 1 through 4, and so the two guys that were talking about it were Hillel, and we could say a little bit more of a liberal interpreter, and he said, divorce for any reason. Let me correct this up here. Now, the other guy is Shammai. My handwriting is horrible today. And he would have been a little more conservative on the issue. And he said divorce only for immorality, adultery. The Greek porneia. And so the language of Deuteronomy 24 is that you may divorce for something objectionable. It would be like something objectionable or indecent. And so that's what it says in Deuteronomy 24. And so the debate was, well, what's objectionable or indecent? Shammai says, well, that's referring to something as indecent as sexual immorality, adultery. Hillel says, no, it could actually be for anything whatsoever, if she burns the dinner, or if you find another woman just to be more attractive than her, then you have grounds for divorce. That's the debate that's out there. Now, Judaism kind of on paper had a high view on marriage, for sure, but the popular view was Hillel's. Guess why? It allowed you to get rid of a woman that you didn't like. And I say you get rid of a woman that you don't like because women didn't have the ability to initiate divorce except on a couple reasons. But the men could do it. If you take Hillel's understanding of Deuteronomy 24 1 through 4, 1 through 4. So if you take Hillel, you can divorce for any reason. So obviously that's what is going to be the popular opinion there. Okay, so that's the test. They're saying, Jesus, do you agree with Hillel or do you agree with Shammai? And because of what Jesus has already said in Matthew 5, 31 and 32, let's put that in there. I think it's 31 to 32. Jesus has already taught a little bit about what he thinks about divorce. And so this may be that the Pharisees know that the popular view is that of Hillel, yet Jesus seems to align more with Shammai. And so here's Jesus's, here's what they ask him. They say, is it lawful to divorce a man's wife for any cause? So, Hillel, that's what the people like. Isn't Jesus a rabbi of the people? And Jesus answers, have you not read that, here it is, this is just masterful Jesus work here, that he who created them from the beginning, Genesis 1, made them, he is the maker of male and female. And so we're looking at Genesis 1, 26 to 28-ish. And he said, therefore, so there's a maker that in the beginning made male and female. And he said that man, this is Genesis 2, 24? I think it's 24. 2:24. That man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to, sometimes we say cleave, leave and cleave, glue, cement, cement to his wife. And the two shall become, here it is, this is the mystery of marriage, two become one flesh. And ultimately, this is what is this is enacted in sexual union. It is the physical enacting of the spiritual reality of oneness. And so Jesus says, are you asking me about Deuteronomy 24? Because let me tell you about Genesis 1 and 2. And so he goes on to say, they are not two, but one, no longer two, but one flesh. And then here's his big pronouncement. What therefore God has joined together, not a pastor or legal document. What God has joined together, let not man separate. And here we have what we would call creation's design. Oh my goodness. I sometimes love the autocorrect and sometimes abhor it. More often than not, I abhor it when I'm doing this. Okay, so this is creation's design. I'm going to change it a little bit. Small thing, but creational design. And that's what we have going on in the red. Now let's go back and let's look at what they say back to Jesus. They say to them, then, why then? As if they're going to retort back to Genesis 1 and 2, but they do. They said, why then did Moses command? Now notice this. Moses did not command it. It's in the law, but it's not commanded that you are to divorce your wife if you have a problem with her. That's not the design. That's exactly the opposite of what Jesus just said, and they recognize it. Jesus said, "You're bound together. You're one. You can't separate those two things." And they're saying, "But Moses gave us the command to divorce her and to give a certificate of divorce and send her away." And Jesus says, "Are you kidding me?" That's not in the text, but you have to imagine, right? Because this is why. Because of your hardness of heart. Now, let's just grab that. That your hardness of heart. This is pair next to, see also Pharaoh, who hardened his heart. This is language of rebellion against God. And so because of your hardness of heart, the people, the Israelites, God's covenant people, they rebelled against God's design. What they rebel against? God's design to be forever yoked together. Because of sin, because of sexual immorality and adultery, because of sin, there is now a concession allowed. Moses allowed. He did not command it. He allowed it. He permitted it. This is permit, gave concession, not a command. He permitted it because of the brokenness of his covenant people, because of the sin that's present there. He gave you permission to divorce your wives. But from the beginning, don't forget this. Even though Moses gave a concession because of your sinfulness, this is not the way that it was ever supposed to be. And so Jesus says, whoever divorces his wife except for sexual immorality and marries another commits adultery. And so this is a hard passage because we also have the Pauline concession in 1 Corinthians 7 that if you're deserted, you can be remarried and you're not forever shackled to that person. And it gets into a debate on is this the only are those the only two reasons that are permitted for divorce? Is divorce ever tolerated? Is remarriage acceptable if divorce does happen? It gets into a significant debate, very significant debate with many arguments on all sides. Hard thing. But what we have right here is Jesus acknowledging that one flesh, one flesh, how do I want to say it? One flesh severing may happen in broken world. Severing. We want to keep strong language for this because Jesus does. And so the disciples say to him, then, this is really hard stuff, Jesus. If this is the seriousness, the weightiness of marriage, maybe it's better to not get married at all. And Jesus said, not everybody can handle that. Okay, that's not for everybody. You can't put that out there on everybody because that's not for everybody. Not everybody can receive this saying, but only those to whom it is given. Some are called to singleness. And he goes on to use kind of the imagery of eunuch, but he's talking about singles. But he uses the language of eunuch, and every commentator will agree with this, that Jesus is not talking about eunuchs. He's using the imagery of the eunuchs to talk about those who commit to the single life. Some are this way from birth. They just have never had a desire for marriage. And they don't really have a desire for marriage. They don't burn with passion within themselves, and so they're able to live like Paul for the sake of the kingdom. Some are this way from birth. And there are some eunuchs who have been made eunuchs by men, and there are some who have made themselves eunuchs for the sake. Here, this is really for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. This is more like Paul right here. And it says, let the one who is able to receive it, receive it. Okay, so those who can receive the single life can understand this. But you can't avoid marriage because it is weighty and hard and forever. Okay, that's what we have. I think Jesus saying. So really, I think the red that we have right there, that's the heartbeat of all of this, and what it does is it gets into the tension between God's original creational design and what is the case because of the broken world that we live in. There are other laws in the Torah that we could point to about ritual cleansing, after touching dead bodies. Death wasn't originally part of the plan, but it's something that has to happen. So you have ceremonial washings, and there's also there's ways to be made clean and right before God, so that you can offer up worship. You were always intended to give worship to God. Sin has stained you and polluted you, so you can't be in His presence. So He makes a way to enter back into proper worship with Him. We look at, the Levitical cities, where someone who accidentally kills someone can go and find, safe haven and things like that. And until proper ruling is made, you've got a bunch of laws that are there because people are sinful, because people are broken, because death is in this world that God didn't intend with creation. And so we have the creational ideal, but then we have the reality of the presence of sin. And so the point, though, is that we don't take advantage of the concessions that God allows because of the presence of sin as our first starting point. We don't start with the possibility of divorce. We start with God's ideal with creation's design. That's the starting point. And when we start there, divorce is not the first question we ask. It's how do we embody and walk in God's ideal for marriage, as in a one flesh forever covenant between two. And so this is a hard text. This is a hard text because I'm preaching to a church where this is present, and for a variety of different reasons. And I can't shy away from what Jesus says, yet also, we have to have a compassionate and gracious and tender heart, because divorce is not the unforgivable sin, and so we have to view this text in light of the grace of the gospel. And so not easy. So please pray for me, church, and by God's grace, we will find ourselves built up by all of the scriptures, every passage of Matthew, not neglecting the hard ones. And so to that end, please pray for me. And so there we have it. I love you, church, and I'll see you in a couple days.